Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to this edition of Value of Words, Afternoons with an Author. I'm delighted to introduce two very good friends. Meeran, who was my senior at BSF campus Jalandhar. We've grown up together. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Meeran. Meeran has had a very distinguished career. She's been a Humphrey Fellow. She's been the police commissioner at Pune. She's held very important positions. And she writes for the Indian Express. She's been writing for a long time. And you can always see her giving her forthright and very clear impressions about how things should be. And we are joined today by Abhinav. I'm very privileged to have trained him at the Mussoorie Academy. Again, a very, very bright officer, but more than bright, I mean, there's a very, very forthright, very, very forthcoming officer. So it's a great pleasure that we have today with us the serving DGP of Uttarakhand. I think he's the youngest DGP in the country today. And we have with us Meeran Borwankar. And the book that we're going to be discussing is Madam Commissioner. Normally, the senior most person has the privilege of, of shooting questions and getting the juniors to respond. But today we shall reverse roles. We'll ask Abhinav to grill Meeran, but in a nice manner. And I'm sure Abhinav will do a good job. So if you are ready, Meeran, we can start.
Well,
Yeah, I'm ready, and I don't even mind if Abhinav is ruthless.
really
Okay.
not at all. It's not.
So go ahead.
Not. I mean, forthright, yes, but ruthless is something I've never been that comfortable with. I think any kind of discussion or even a difference of opinion must be sort of conveyed in as civilized and sort of congenial a manner as possible. But having said that, thank you, sir. And first of all, I'd like to say that this is a privilege because I think this is my first face-to-face, even though it's virtual, it's my first face-to-face interaction with Madam Borwankar. I've been a reader for a long time of her writings in the Indian Express, and of course, when I joined service in 1996, she was very much a known figure in the Indian Police Service. Not just because of the fact that she's a lady, but the fact that Maharashtra happens to be a very large and important state, not just from the political or the economic perspective, from the policing perspective as well. Whatever has happened, it has been a pioneer in many of the things that happen in the police, both good and bad. I think ma'am would agree to that. And Mumbai police has long been a model for good and bad reasons for metropolitan police forces around the country. The kind of challenges they've faced in Maharashtra police, I think they are a learning experience for police forces around the country. And so in that capacity, one has long been aware of her different assignments in Maharashtra police, especially her stint as Commissioner of Police Pune. In a larger context, of course, we in Uttarakhand were also fortunate to have worked with another very distinguished lady police officer, Madam Kanchan Chaudhary Bhattacharya, who happened to be the first police chief of the country. And I think sir was in Uttarakhand cadre, very much in Uttarakhand cadre when she led us.
So, in fact, Meeran had also come for the All India
yes,
Police
and we hosted that Police Congress,
which was at the academy, which was done at the Lal Bahadur Shastri
in Mussoorie. So, one has seen, and again, working with her, once she tried to bring a lot of transformation, women-oriented transformation in the Uttarakhand police, not just for women citizens, but also for women lady police officers, police constables, and so on. So one is directly, aware of the significance of and the good that one inspired lady officer can do in an organization. And from that perspective, I think it's a privilege. And so, ma'am, I mean, I'll just start off with this thing. Of course, when you joined the service in '81, we were still a very, very. I think one of the things is the dramatic change that has come with regard to gender in both in our public life and in our public services. Of course, when you joined, I imagine the landscape was still far more traditional or patriarchal as it was. So what are I would say, what are the 3 or 4 biggest changes that you can say happened for the good and the three bad things which have persisted from the time in 81 that you know donned the uniform, or 82, I would say, when after you finish your NPA training, and from the time you hung up your boots in, I think, what, 2016 it was, 2014. Uh, so the three good and the three bad changes that you've seen. I mean, that's what I would like to hear, and so and then we can talk about specifics of your experience in different assignments.
So, from the gender point of view, the good thing and the change I have seen is that number of women has gone up. Like I was alone in my batch of Indian Police Service in 1981, and in the National Police Academy, Hyderabad itself, I had to hear many a times that since I had in my first chance opted for Indian audits and accounts, that go back. Accounts is the right kind of service for a woman, and you have made a mistake. It wasn't even said you may have made a mistake. Generally, the advice, suggestion, or remark would be you have made a mistake, go back to the 2024, where women are not only accepted in the department, we are encouraging them to join. And I am told that the current batch has 59 women out of 201 some
Very
male
good.
total probationers.
I'll just add to that. I just hosted the 2023 batch because they come each year, ma'am, to Uttarakhand for a week-long module of training with the LBS as well as with the ITBP for outdoor activities. And you're absolutely right. The total batch was about 220 because there were some from the previous batch doing their training, and there were, I think, about 65 or 66 ladies. And it was definitely, like you said, it was a pleasant surprise to see them in that number, because in my own batch, the 50th RR, there were just three ladies. And so, from our time also, it's a huge change.
So if you have such lesser number like one in the batch or three in your batch, women are so much under watch of others, and they also feel so constrained that the best doesn't come out. We have the capability, but we are constrained. So another good part is not only do we have more number of women in police, but they are also able to give their best as leaders, as followers, as team players. So that's another plus point. And third, slowly we are moving away. I'm just considering gender at this time. uh, all women police stations to women in all police stations.
Yes.
What was happening was that a woman facing domestic violence or sexual harassment at place X would go to the nearest police station, but she was being told, no, 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 go to that one police station, maybe one in each district, which deals with women's complaints. So she was asked to travel another 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers. And women related offenses were being treated as something different from normal police. Today, the good part is that police station men and women all are able to investigate, though the Supreme Court order says and the guidance issued are that women related offenses, especially if they are sexual offenses, then the complainant should be a woman officer. The complaint should be recorded by a woman officer. So more women in police, more confident women in police, and offenses against women being registered at all police stations and not being clustered only in a few. These are the good changes as far as gender is concerned. The minus point is that patriarchy still remains. And I'm told, sociologists and people who are experts in that, it will take some time, um, and it may take more than another decade for the patriarchal structure of a police station to be open, fair. And another thing I feel is that lack of infrastructure as far as women are concerned continues to be an issue. And then we did one study in Maharashtra Police after we had completed 25 years of 33% reservation. It was sponsored by Center for Police Research in Pune, and a very high number of this sample, which was say about 450 women officers of the rank of constable to sub inspector, they felt that they do not get cooperation from their male colleagues. So, lack of infrastructure continues, that patriarchy, and lack of cooperation at the field level. We may, all three of us may say that this doesn't exist at the leadership level, but it still exists in the field level. That those are my three pluses and three minuses for gender in police.
Just before you take off again, Abhinav, thank you, Meeran, for setting the context. I got so excited, about the fact that Meeran and Abhinav are here that I forgot to, thank the National Digital Library of India, based out of IIT Kharagpur, which broadcasts this to all the NDLI clubs in the country, to Kharwal Post, to Technopack, to Green Panel, Coal India, ONGC, REC, NEFED, and of course the government of Uttarakhand, because without those who support this event, it couldn't have taken place. Normally I do it at the very beginning, but I got so excited today that I forgot. My viewers, thank you very much for being here. Back to you, Abhinav.
Yes, sir. So I mean, coming back to, I'd rather, the positives, of course, are there. I would just add to what ma'am is saying. I think definitely from the time even when I joined the service in '96, at the time now, which is also almost 3 decades now, definitely the acceptance of women in police has grown. There's no doubt about it. I think there is a greater sensitivity, and I think that realization that this whole thing of all women police stations and all, it's a very, very strange and archaic concept. I mean, I remember when I joined Uttarakhand, the women police thana was for the Garhwal division was in a place called Srinagar, which is about 100 kilometers deep in the mountains from Rishikesh. And it's at the back of beyond, and I just thought to myself, how are the women of either the remote places in the hills or even in Dehradun or in Chakrata and these places, how the hell are they going
to, for that matter,
find the resources? Just having that economic freedom and the independence to go to Srinagar without a male relative, because even in the mid 90s, it was this kind of thing was there. And of course, then of course, our public spaces have become safer for women. But as a father of a young woman, I can say they're still far from what we need to be. So I thought, this is completely absurd. So we are trying to, ma'am, just to mention to you, we are trying to do that. And of course, we are trying to recruit more women. Uttarakhand already, I think, has one of the highest percentage of women at all ranks. And again, this is a legacy of Kanchan ma'am. And we are trying to get up to, say, at least 20-25% in the next 5 years, which, although not ideal, still it's a step forward. And definitely, making the workplace more, both in terms of physical infrastructure and in terms of, the mind space, more women friendly. Again, it's a work in progress, far from ideal. And I mean, I think, the change in the police force, like every other aspect of the police force, I think it is always going to be a few years behind the rest of society. Police, I think by its very design, police is a more conservative and a cautious organization than the rest of society. We are more suspicious of social change than I think other wings of our civil society, and especially with regard to gender and so I think that's happening. And hopefully, by the time I hang up my boots in service, which is not too far away, but this would have changed even further. Having said that, ma'am, I mean, I think what were the specific challenges that you faced in terms of infrastructure and in terms of the workplace atmosphere that you would care to share with us, so that as a current leader of the force, I become more, there's a selfish motive for that. So I can become more nuanced in addressing them, and perhaps take specific feedback from my lady subordinates on these aspects.
So first of all, I would say that police, I don't agree that police leadership is conservative. You are one of the best. And I feel you don't lag behind. The leadership at that time felt there is no space for women, so that's the way they reacted. Leadership at your age group is very progressive, and I find some of the best minds in services. As far as what I faced, I will tell one example which I faced when I was a young probationer, and one which I faced when I became joint CP crime, which means I was of IG rank. So Bhadrakali police station, I have mentioned it in my book, where I was being trained, was ready to teach me Marathi language. I'm a Punjabi, and Sanjeev, please mention me as Meeran Chadha Borwankar.
ठीक है.
You know
Done.
my Chadha family more than
Yeah, of course.
Borwankar. So, Bhadrakali police station staff took pains to teach me Marathi, to show me how to register an FIR, how to draft a recovery panchnama, spot panchnama, charge sheeting. But when it came to taking me for field operations like action against gambling, raid against illicit liquor, against prostitution, they were very hesitant. And after a few days, I realized not only were they hesitant because I'm a woman, and how would a woman participate, let alone lead? Leading, they couldn't even think of how would she participate in a raid. And second, the inspector of Bhadrakali police station is 6 feet tall, imposing personality, a leader of the police station. He would have to sit in the jeep in the back, while me being an IPS probationer would sit in the front. So that itself was not acceptable to them, that a woman leads the operation even if she is under training just because of rank. I don't think a male officer would have faced this kind of dilemma on the part of the staff. So this is the beginning of my career. And when I became joint CP crime, the government and Mumbai crime branch is totally macho, known all over the country, the kind of investigation and operations it conducts against organized crime. I was offered this post and I gave my consent, and the order came only after 3 months because there were again lots of doubts. Having offered me the post, whether a woman can lead crime branch Mumbai. So that's why I say things have still not changed as much as they could. Now, my point is, uh, gender does not matter when it comes to leadership, when it comes to integrity, when it comes to making the team deliver. Uh, so, when as a DG or as senior officers, or all our audience watching this program, do not underestimate the capability of women. One, give them a chance, put your confidence in them, and they would not only deliver you, they will surprise you with the achievements.
I think I'll supplement that. I mean, this is something I face because, as sir would be aware, in our cadre right now we have the first lady chief secretary, who's just taken over a few months ago from the 88 batch. I have a fairly sizable number of lady IPS officers as well as ladies in the PPS cadre. So the mid leadership and the higher ranks. And yes, we do face this problem of whenever I have suggested, whenever the government has thought about changing district police chiefs or the range level officers, they don't have a problem in giving women important posts in the home department, ma'am, or in the police headquarters. But still, there is this is just to concur with what you're saying. At the cutting edge level, whether it is a district SP or at the Thanedar level. Again, because that is, I think the real change will come when we have more lady Thanedars. Because again, lady SPs and lady DIGs and even, they don't have that kind of a daily interface with the common public as a Thanedar does. So that would be, and whenever I suggest a few this thing, I see not explicitly, but there is a subtle bias in terms of going for, if there is a more suitable male officer available, they will prefer. Although once or twice I've managed to convince the government कि नहीं इनको भी chance दीजिए, but so I agree with that. I think that change, and I think I think that change will, ma'am, come once we have more lady representation in our political class. Because you see, I think that is also very, very
Absolutely. I think
very visible.
the change will be overarching.
Yeah.
It can't be that you have women in this.
So,
But let me give you let me give you an example, which is a very interesting example. You see, in West Bengal, because the admission to agricultural colleges is done on the basis of the marks obtained in the senior secondary, we now have more than 65% women in agricultural colleges. Now, I
so
think this change will be reflected after another 5 or 10 years.
no,
Because as more and more women will start joining, different professional colleges, and already I think in the overall civil services now, I think the women percentage has gone up to about 37, 38%. And I don't think it will take 10 years. My own feeling is that give it another 3 or 4 years, women will become the majority or will cross
so,
50%
sir, I
in
think
civil
yes,
services.
sir. I think in the purely academic driven fields, purely merit driven professions, yes. But when we are dealing with either with political power or with the statutory power wielding authorities of the state, like the police or the armed forces and all, I mean, my gut feeling is, and I mean, ma'am can respond to that, is that I mean, you see, we had a lady prime minister long before we had a lady police chief. We had ladies serving in the IAS or the foreign service or in other fields far before we had ladies in the police. Or I mean, just see what happened in the armed forces. In the armed forces, even now, the short service commission lady officers are having to fight in the courts for permanent service commission, and even
Yeah,
there the army.
she's won the case. This
I
Joshi's
know.
won the case, and I think the other good thing. I mean, and I think we'll let Meera do talk about this book in particular. The fact that now RIMC has cadets, as girl cadets. I think
Yeah.
that's also a very good sign. So, Meera, can you tell us something about how you have enjoyed writing this book? Because it's a labor of love. You've enjoyed writing it. You've talked about personal anecdotes. You've brought in many things. So tell us about the process of writing this book and the response that you've received on this.
Response has been surprisingly overwhelming. I thought I'll get a good response, but it has surprised me and my publisher. It has gone for the fourth print in English, and Marathi print is out.
Oh,
English
great.
print, Hindi is coming soon. It's on editing stage, and Matrubhumi in Kerala has bought its Malayalam rights, translation in Malayalam. The process was that I have already written two books, Leaves of Life. It is a motivational book for the youth. The thought behind was that what I learned through trial and error, if I share with the youth, their process may not be that long in learning. It may help them and also may not be that much painful. Initially, Leaves of Life I had written for young women, but my publisher Vishwakarma from Pune said no, it should be for both the genders. It's also doing very well. It has each chapter is a short, small episode followed by lessons learned and action point. After that did very well, again I took up the pen and I wrote Inspector Chougule, which is a book with short real short stories of crime which I supervised as an IPS officer, except for one story which I have given it a twist, which is not real, but otherwise it's all the stories are real. That's also doing really well because it's again a simple book with simple police stories. And then I got confidence that now I can probably write for an adult reader. These two are very simple reads, and one specially Leaves of Life is specially for the youth. And the process was very enjoyable because all the readers, all the our audience, that I was not under any pressure to write. I was writing because I felt like writing, and suddenly some episode I would remember, and I will pick up the pen. So the first draft and the final product, it took me say about 2 years, not less than 2 years, and I corrected the draft 4 to 5 times. Then 1 year Pan Mac took first to edit and then to publish. But the process was enjoyable mainly because I, as a police officer, felt my stories were interesting. Whenever I would, in a family gathering or friends gathering, I'll share one small episode, they will ask for more. So I had gauged the fact that the small chapters which then emerge in my book are interesting stories. There is no bhashan in my book. And I love quotes. So I just feel they condense a very long thought into the shortest possible word frame. So it took me some time to find out right quote for the chapter I was writing. I had to do some research about the court cases. I had decided that 4 or 5 cases would be specific from registration of FIR to the conclusion in the court. So that research took some time. And I must share, Sanjeev, that I learned during this process. I felt that I am learning a lot. Can I give an example?
Of course, of course.
So there is one case where an 8 years old child was raped in Kolhapur in a Maruti car, and the case got concluded with conviction in the session court. When I went on the net and I knew that Supreme Court had upheld the conviction. I realized that Supreme Court had passed adverse comments against the public uproar and the public pressure brought for um, brought in for the case at the registration stage till its follow up till the Supreme Court. And a legal luminary had in fact criticized Supreme Court, saying if you say that an offense is an offense against not only an individual but against the society, then how come you are saying that public uproar is not justified? So this whole conflicting opinion, court saying that it was wrong for public to pressurize investigating agencies or court, and legal luminary saying that we should appreciate the participation of citizens in this process. So these things I learned while writing, and I feel enriched. If my readers are enjoying the book and if they are feeling enriched, I would say I am equally enriched.
Absolutely.
Ma'am, just to take that anecdote from the Supreme Court a little further, of course, in our career as police officers, there are 3 or 4 sort of equations with different wings of civil society that are very, very, I think, crucial and critical in our own performance as police. One, of course, as you just mentioned, the equation with the judiciary. The second with our senior colleagues in the civil service, especially the administrative service, but also as we grow more senior with the other wings of the government. The third, of course, is the media, which increasingly, I think that is one change I have seen which has been very, very stark from the time I entered the service till now. How would you reminisce or think about these three crucial? That you've talked about the judiciary. What was your experience of working with your colleagues in the administrative service, in both in Maharashtra and those you might have interacted with in the government of India? And then, of course, the last, but not the least, the political class. Whether at the district level or at the state level or the national level, what was your experience like, and what suggestions or what tips would you give to any young colleagues or young aspirants who might be watching this interaction?
So with administrative service, there was not an issue. I didn't get DMs or collectors who were big in ego. In fact, in my first district as an SP, it was the first time that the state was handing over the district police chief's post to a woman. So while I was conscious that I should not fail, if I fail, women IPS officers will not probably be given independent district police chief's post for a decade. This will be cited as an example that she couldn't do it, so let's wait. Women are not ready for it. And my collector, I have mentioned it in my book, Mr. Mane. He was a state administrative officer, got into IS. He was very good in guiding me, very matured in handling the issues of coordination. I had no problem. But when I was SP in Satara, there was one public meeting where I denied permission because in the ground next to the permission where it was sought for, we had already permitted a party which was opposed to this particular request. We had permitted them the rally. So this permission I denied, thinking they can come face to face and they can be an issue. I have not cited this in book. It didn't strike me, but now that you are asking me, and the local politician, the district minister, prevailed upon the collector, the DM, that you give permission to both the parties. And when the public meeting ended and both the parties came face to face, I got such desperate calls from my DM saying, Madam, ab kya karne ka hai? So I feel if we coordinate, if we stay together, we can handle politicians much better. If the DM and I had been together in saying and arguing it out with him that opposing parties should not be given permission at the same time, district minister would have uh, be probably changed his mind. But here he thought, okay, SP nahi permit kar raha hai, to DM se karwa lo kaam. And ultimately, coming face to face could have led to a serious riot. So I think coordination should be the theme. And I very seriously feel that in India, we can achieve much more if we coordinate better. With judiciary, I didn't have any confrontation, especially except that when we wanted to have joint training of uh, police officers, medical officers, forensic experts, and judicial officers, initially the High Court did not agree. But once we approached the registrar, he agreed, and I feel training of all these wings. We also had prison officers. So we started with IO, medical expert, forensic, judicial officer, and prison officers, and we got excellent feedback. So I think we these kinds of coordinated training programs like we have in Masuri, the foundation.
Yes, I think it's very important. And in fact, in Missouri, we did have one program in which we had that was on juvenile justice. So we had the IOs and the juvenile people. I mean, juvenile justice administrators and all these things. It's a very good point. Meeran, you've also been to the states as a Humphrey Fellow. and you had some experience in sitting at police stations in the US. So, would you like to share some experiences about how their policing is so different from ours? And whether there are some learning points from your experience in the police stations there.
So I went there in 2001 too. Technically, they were so advanced. One, second, they in at least I was in Minneapolis and Saint Paul Police would have civil officers. They are called officers. They are civilians working with police units. So their community reach, community programs were very strong, and along with community programs and very technically advanced police machinery, one thing which Abhinav, your generation should do. In US, a police constable would work for 8 hours and be off duty.
Be off duty,
In
yes.
India, all over the country, a police officer works for 12 hours. And I feel if we can bring shift system, which I saw in America, which is doing very well, shift system read with technology, read with very good, intense, well researched, well documented community reach, that will be a game changer. Community reach, technology, and 8 hours shift for police.
You have done a lot of work on community policing, and you mentioned about how you were able to upgrade a chalky, and all these things. Now we have only 4 minutes left, and there are many questions, but there is one question for you, Meeran, and one for Abhinav. For Meeran, the question is, how do you decide which incidents to include and what to exclude from your book? And Abhinav, the question for you is, when are you writing your experiences? So first Meeran, and then Abhinav.
So I like this question. I see from the reader's point of view what will interest them, and while giving an interesting episode, give a message somewhere.
Okay.
Don't write too abstract. Think from the reader's point of view, but do leave a message.
So it's basically you're writing a book for the reader. So in the course of writing that book, if there is a good message that goes through, so be it. But you can't really do a didactic. You can't really have a moral and then start doing a story on that. So that's the point that you're
Yes.
making. So how do you decide to exclude some events where you've also already mentioned that it's from the reader's point of view? So Abhinav, the question to you is, when are you writing your book?
Well,
And
just
how
one
will it be
question.
different from, because you can't you of course will have a different title.
I have a slightly as a writer, I have a slightly different approach. I really don't think much about the reader. I think more about what is my authentic voice, or what is my authentic take on a subject, or whether it is a real life experience, or a, an abstract issue, and in the hope that if what I'm writing is interesting enough and authentic enough, it may find readers, or it may not. But I mean, I write first for my own satisfaction, and then perhaps for the enjoyment of my reader. I mean, that's my approach. And to answer your question, I'll get around to doing so when I'm given a reasonable assurance that I won't get into too much trouble. So,
Great.
so
So I think both of us would like to invite you, Miran, to come to Dehradun
well,
and have a real live session with us. It'll
yes,
be a real privilege.
yeah.
Abhinav, you were saying something?
No, I said it would be a real pleasure, because I would especially like the large number of lady officers I have in the
Yes.
Uttarakhand police to
Yes.
have a chance of interacting with you. Not just the ladies, of course, the gents as well, because I
Yeah.
think we all need to learn from the experience of such distinguished stalwarts in service. And I think that is one thing which is breaking down in our generation. Our generation, and especially the newer generation, I see the moment I talk about getting them to interact with seniors, they slightly shrug their shoulders or roll their eyes, and
No, Abhinav, I think no. I think it's our responsibility as seniors to involve them. I think there's some issue there. I think it's for us to involve them. It is for us to call them,
so
to
what
discuss
happens
things
is
with
that,
them. They will always be a bit nervous. Like
sometimes
we were nervous.
sometimes
So I think the initiative came from our bosses in those days. I certainly remember that the officers would call us, senior officers would call us. And I think today we will have to take this responsibility. But anyway, thank you very much, Meeran Chadha. Thank you very much, Abhinav. And we really look forward to hosting
Just
Meeran
one
in
thing, sir.
Dehradun.
I think going back on that thing, I think when is the Punjabi edition of the book coming out? Because I think a whole bunch of people in Punjab would also benefit from your
ਬੱਲੇ
experience.
ਬੱਲੇ ਕਰਾਤੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਅਭਿਨਵ ਜੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦਾ ਛਾਪ ਦੇਾਂਗੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਛਾਪ ਵੀ ਦੇਾਂਗੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਉਹਦਾ ਇੰਪੈਕਟ ਵੀ ਹੋ ਜਾਊਗਾ so on this very positive note thank you very much Meeran thank you very much Abhinav and thank you to NDLI to Garhwal Post Technopack Green Panel Coal India ONGC REC NAFED Incredible India and of course the government of Uttarakhand for being for being supportive of the value of words so we see you again next Sunday. We see you again on the last Sunday of next month. Thank you very much. Thank you, Meeran. Thank you, Abhinav.
Thank you.